the best you could do was bring a black girl to prom. Like, that's the best you could do for your date. Hey ladies, it's Dominga. Today's video is a little bit different. It's been on my heart recently to talk about natural hair and the way that it's viewed in America specifically. If you've been here before, thank you so much for returning, and if you haven't, welcome. I'm so excited to have you. This channel is all about interpersonal relationships, personal development, a little bit of wellness, some lifestyle, and all things girly. So I'm so excited to have you. Please like and subscribe if you are into this kind of content and you want to hear more like this from me. In today's video, I'm specifically focusing on situations that have happened to me, but of course from a broader perspective, the way that it can affect how people move through the world and what kind of agency Black women have from a systemic perspective, and then how we can all treat one another and be more empathic and inclusive toward one another in the future. Starting off strong, I remember there was a boy who came up to me in my prom date in high school, and he was genuinely concerned for his friend. He was like, "Man, it's so weird. The best you could do was bring a black girl to prom. Like, that's the best you could do for your date." And I remember how it made me feel in the moment. I never really internalized it to the degree where I felt less than, but it truly made me aware of the fact that I was seen so differently. I think I felt alienated and ostracized much more than made small. Separate scenario, a boy came up to me in high school and he was like, "You know, if you were to work at Hooters, you'd have to work in the kitchen and not on the floor, because with that hair, you would just never make any tips on the floor." And then he asked me to homecoming a couple of months later. So there were often little jokes that I was expected to brush off. I remember one night I was on FaceTime with this guy that I was talking to at the time, and his cat was all black, super cute cat. And he was like, "Make sure to watch my cat for me while I step away from the camera. You know, I don't want him to steal any of my things." Just joking, you know, just making stereotypical jokes. And granted, that one's not all that deep, but it's just things like that do add up. This is a big one for me. People not understanding or pretending to not understand why the N-word is offensive and just sort of testing you with it and just being like, "Well, you know, why can Black people say it if white people can't say it?" I personally don't think anyone should. I really wish it wasn't every other word in rap music, but all of that aside, I don't think it's a particularly difficult thing to understand why we should just leave it where it was. That's my 2 cents. This one is one of my favorites. I mean that sarcastically, but people saying, "Oh, you're so pretty for a black girl," or like, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen a black girl like you," or "You must be mixed with something. You couldn't just possibly be just black," which I do happen to be mixed with something. My mom's Portuguese, but that's still not the point. It's almost like if there's any sort of adjacence to anything besides your blackness, it's almost seen as like, okay, well, good for you. You're not that black. And I find it so disheartening that we still think this way in 2025. And while I'm on that note, it's strange to me that people don't recognize how backhanded that is. Another one on the list, people being so genuinely dumbfounded when they would go and like kind of run their hands through my hair and be like, "Oh, your hair is real. And it's so long. How did you get it to be so long and real and you're black?" Like, just so confused. "Oh, wow, like, I don't feel any tracks. I don't feel any clips. Like, your hair is so long. I don't understand." I just find it so inappropriate. I really do. And I don't know why that one rubs me wrong, but it does. This one I do find triggering, and it was always the people that would affirm me and tell me to wear my hair curly that would then kind of flip the script when I'd finally done it. I remember, I won't even say who because it's not necessary, but someone I love very much was like, "Oh, you kind of look like you got electrocuted today." One time I was wearing my hair natural. I'm just like, "You were the one who told me to do this. You're the one who's affirmed me all of this time." And then it's like, I'm doing it and now it's not enough for you. I'm doing it wrong. It's really exhausting to be yourself and then have people tell you you're being yourself wrong. You know how sometimes you'll go on Instagram and it'll say who something is liked by? So I feel like this often happens, but I'll just be scrolling and sometimes something, whether it be stereotypical or more racially driven, will pop up and I'm like, seeing some of my good friends, or at least so to speak, liking things that are literally racist. I'm like, I wouldn't do that to you, but here you are. I digress. And then might I add, if you ever call someone out on it, so respectfully, because I'm not particularly combative, but if I call my friends out on this, like, "Oh, I saw you like that," or like sometimes even if I'm feeling audacious, I'll send it to them and be like, "Saw you liked this," and they'll be like, "Oh, it's just my sense of humor." Got it, okay. often being told growing up, oh, go put your hair together, or you're really gonna wear it like that? I'm like, yeah, I'm 10. I'm not gonna go put 400 degrees of heat on my hair. Yeah, this is what you're getting. I guess my point in saying that is every attempt that I made to love my hair was shot down in one way or another. If it weren't by kids at school, it was by a teacher, and if it weren't by either of those two parties, then it was a caretaker of some sort. There was such a consistent reinforcement throughout my life that how you were born was wrong. Here's a big one. The conversation about good hair versus bad hair. And because I have a Portuguese side to my family, there was often a conversation about who has good hair and who does not, because there was a whole sect of my family that was just that much closer to whiteness. So we're gonna see looser curl patterns, if a curl pattern at all. We're gonna see length retention. We're gonna see lighter hair. I felt very, I don't know, sort of chipped away at, for lack of a better way to put it. And we still see this kind of rhetoric reinforced online. There are so many TikToks where people are like, you need to wear yaki hair if you're a black woman so that you're not denaturing your hair at 600 degrees Fahrenheit. And then people in the comments like, I would never wear yaki hair. Well, your hair is closer to yaki hair than European straight, babe. I mean, what are you really saying? Okay. I remember being told very early on that I needed to learn to code switch because I came off so intelligent and a little too square, and that it made people uncomfortable. And I'm like, all I'm doing is enunciating. This was just last week, but a good friend of mine who I've loved for pretty much my entire life was telling me about this boyfriend that she recently dumped. And at some point she shows him a photo of her best friend, me, and she's like, oh yeah, blah, 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 this is us. And he goes, oh, well, she's pretty, but you're definitely prettier, you know. I mean, she is black. And I'm not sure if that was exactly how he put it, but she said she could tell that that's why he was saying that I was not as beautiful. And to each their own, you're allowed to have your opinion, but it's just crazy behavior. It is so crazy how comfortable people are saying things like that. And all of this sort of comes together and it makes this mental block, and it's been very difficult to deconstruct and to grapple with. And I remember being in high school always feeling like last chosen to things, last chosen to prom, last chosen to homecoming. It was always like, you know, the last kid to put on your team to play a sport. Like, oh, like, I'll take you. Everybody else is taken already. I think that's what's made this channel so important to me, is I feel like I've been consistently told throughout my life to like myself less, whether it be directly said or passively said. And that's why I want to have this community of people who kind of tune in on a regular basis for us to all remind each other that you were made exactly the way that you were supposed to be made. On the bright side though, I do feel like it's taught me to seek validation less in people and to try and find that within, because I recognized very early on that validation was not coming. So I had to sort of find a way to jumpstart it within myself. Now that I've taken you through some of the experiences that I've had, let me kind of unpack how this has made me show up in the world. I feel like it's pushed me to a point of apathy. I almost do not believe that there is this goodness in people that we all like to say is there. I kind of do believe that this is just how people are, and even when they're in front of you, they might be masking to a degree. And so I think there's some work for me to do there personally, because I would hope that's not true. And instead of expecting better from people or asking people to meet my standard, I just get over it. Like, I don't even really hold people accountable, because I'm like, well, what's the use of spending my energy that way? I'll just get over it and maybe dial you back or place you in the pyramid where I feel like you deserve to be in my life, but it's not going to be me fixing you. And I do also feel like it's kind of made me defensive, even when people don't really mean any harm. People can be genuinely asking for clarity on something, or want to show up or be a better ally, or whatever the case. I kind of hate the word ally, but nonetheless, it's made me just defensive. I'm just like, I don't really want to talk about it. Like, either you get it or you don't. Sorry. Which is not a good way to be. That's not going to foster any change. I would also say, I think it makes me somewhat resentful. I feel like, why can't you do this research yourself? Why do you have to come to me to be the spokesperson for all of this when Google is free and you could, you know, put 1 and 2 and put 2 and 2 together and make your own conclusions? But here you are expecting me to explain this to you after being the one to go through the trauma of it. I find it just exhausting, and I really wish I weren't that way. I remember specifically the first time I ever got really long extensions. It was probably like, let me see, it's probably about like this long and all very full and very even. which is not really how hair grows in general. Like, it was so full that people had to stop and ask me, oh, like, what's different about your hair? Like, something's so different about you. And I remember distinctly how that felt. I do feel like I've been very rewarded because of my adjacence to whiteness and because of the fact that I have been in so many predominantly white spaces as it is. I think people see me in a palatable way, and it's a weird double-edged sword because, at least to some extent, I'm being accepted, but it's like also at what cost, and why do I have to fry my hair to fit in? All the way up until 2018, the US Armed Forces did not allow for people to wear certain protective styles, things like cornrows, afros, etc., because it was seen as unkept. And you know, of course, in the Armed Forces, everybody's expected to look the same. Since 2018, this has changed, and now people are able to wear certain protective styles in the armed forces, but I bring it up to say that this is not an issue of hundreds and hundreds of years ago. This is an issue of rather recently. I was recently asked, why is it not okay for white women to wear braids and protective styles if black women are allowed to straighten their hair? And my friend is like, please just dismantle this double standard for me. And I think what makes this really profound is the fact that during the slave trade, when black people were brought to the Americas, oftentimes they were required to shave their heads against their consent because there was a power play at hand where it was the intention to strip black people of their identity and of their culture. I personally don't really mind when white people want to wear braids or when white people want to wear dreadlocks. I really don't care, but I do definitely wish everybody could gain a little bit more education and actually have an opinion rooted in something. Also, I don't think a lot of people know this, but cornrows were literally braided in a pattern toward freedom. It was literally like a route that people would feel that would tell them, okay, you're going to make a left here, you're going to make a right here, that sort of thing. And there's so much historical context to it that people just don't know about. And I guess I'm having this conversation on the internet in front of everyone and anyone who watches because talking about this really helps me reclaim my power. And for a long time I felt like I needed to be silent about this because in part I felt like nobody cared, but also I felt somewhat guilty about exposing some of the things that people had said to me. And at this point, I really am not all that concerned with that pressure anymore. And I really do think there might be a little girl somewhere on the other side of this camera who might bump into this video and feel seen and feel like she doesn't have to play so small. So remember, you are made with intention, and please treat people with kindness. And I love you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.